So this would be the Imperial March of Japan. And it is Japan, the Japanese dynasty. Emperor Hirohito was ordained on Christmas. And he gave me my first Mortal Kombat character. He transforms the enshrined kami at Yasukuni Shrine into Mortal Kombat characters, of course, and all the Kamikaze. And Samson, his name means of the sun. Cyrus means sun, and the Jews accepted Cyrus as the Messiah. And Mussolini means Jacob, and Jacob was the sun disk in Joseph's prophetic dream. And the best thing that happened to Joseph was he became the slave of Pharaoh, who was the incarnation of a sun god, okay? Over 2,400,000 soldiers are enshrined at Yasukuni Shrine, okay? And the symbol for Meadow is scales of justice. That is the symbol for her zodiac as a Libra, her sun sign, justice. Well, the name Dan means judge. And no religion has more in common with Dan. Actually, no religion has more in common with Israel, the original Israel, which was about deifying a woman who is not God and obeying her because she strikes you as being more virtuous, and blessing her and fighting a suicide kamikaze mission that probably won't work because it goes against your conscience to serve a god who you believe is a tyrant and less charitable and less humane than most Homo sapiens. And it was his decision to favor what was less than God and even commit idolatry, because if you have loyalty to a woman who's telling you to break multiple of God's commandments and telling you to steal what Esau has worked a lot harder for, and to steal from essentially the Pope of that time. Isaac was the Pope, you know. He was the spiritual authority to give the greatest blessing in Scripture, and he gave it to the wrong person. And Jacob didn't do the work. Jacob's work was to love and serve and obey Rebecca, and then Rebecca was the minds and the brains behind it. Kind of like the Jewish mistress who created Mussolini and made him take over a first world cradle of democracy to try to turn him into Cyrus, okay? Because after he abolished slavery in Ethiopia, he turned to the Jews for some financial support to go create the temple and create the nation of Israel. The problem being with so many Bolshevik secular ties in the Jewish people of that time, they did not want to invest in, or they didn't want to live in Israel because the Holocaust had not happened. So Benito Mussolini began as a more fervent Zionist for the creation of Israel and the restoration of the temple than any of the Jews I know of at that time, with exception of his mistress and the ones that were in his party in the highest ranks. And unfortunately, he betrayed them. But he hung upside down, like a caterpillar hangs upside down to become a new creation. Hung upside down from meat hooks, okay? And Inanna, Babylon the Great, descended into hell and hung upside down from meat hooks and rose again on the third day. And the meat hooks for sacred sacrificed animals had to be made of gold in the temple. And to hang upside down in Japan, where Hirohito is the high priest, is it means the same thing the cross means in Christianity, basically. But it has more to do with helping those who have died, who have not healed or who have not forgiven. who have been forgiven, and it is about maybe making your body a temple, a honden, where the kami can dwell, or selecting a room closed off to the general public, reserved for the enshrined souls that need to heal. That is why in Japan they will actually enshrine uh, war criminals, and one of the best ways to exorcise mischievous kami in the Shinto religion is you do not keep beating them, because that could really hurt you. You don't. The exorcisms where you reject them and hate them could cause you problems. They've actually had more success if you build a little kamidana cupboard where you write their names, or you put an image of the kami that has not had a proper burial, or who died tragically, or who needs healing, who's suffering in the next life. You pay alms to the Oban festival. Oban means to hang upside down. Mussolini was killed April 28th, but he hung upside down April 29th. I'll tell you why. That was the worst birthday of Emperor Hirohito. Okay, Emperor Hirohito was found innocent of the war crimes only because the one who was actually guilty, he shot himself in the heart 4 times, and Our Lady asked for devotion to her Immaculate Heart, and I know it was linked to that, but the magic bullet theory from the JFK autopsy was even more magic, because after shooting himself in the heart point blank 4 times, he apologized it was taking him so long to die, and decided he was going to take his last moments on life to take accountability and tell them the truth. He was the high priest, he was a recluse, and he was so naive, and he was a butterfly fly collector. Okay, he was complaining about the pollution in Tokyo causing less butterflies in his imperial gardens, and going to museums to stare at butterflies on the walls. Okay, they thought that was bizarre. I mean, and they were taking advantage of how naive he was, to feed him like false news. But they did not let him address the people. They said that is the job of the military, and he does not. Emperor Hirohito was not the one who was supposed to tell anyone to surrender. He had no say so in the attack on Pearl Harbor. Okay, he was a religious leader who simply the people wanted to die honorably for him, and the kamikazes would do their last toast to the emperor and say, "We will return home honorably at Yasukuni Shrine." And the ones that many didn't want to return home honorably, so they stayed in Vietnam, training the Vietnamese to fight like the Viet Cong and do guerrilla warfare, and win a battle where the shovel does more to win the battle than Dien Bien Phu, where they took out that French fort, huge, enormous battle. Crazy victory. It was the shovel that was the main, did more than guns to win that battle. If they didn't have were not using the shovel, they would have been blown apart and wasted. But it was the samurai who taught them bushido and taught them fearlessness. And some of the samurai, they were Ronin, they were paid samurai. They did fight for America in Vietnam too, but they were actually the ones that were the most dangerous, because if they are appearing to be your friend, but they would much rather see America go down for dropping atomic bombs on their country, and for if they, whatever they think of the Vietnamese, they like them more than they like the Americans, because the Vietnamese have an honor code that was similar, but the Vietnamese also were not the type of communists that were intrinsically atheist. Like the Vietnam has a very, very rich tradition that goes back thousands and thousands of years. The way they burn their incense, how many incense sticks you use, and what it represents, and how you're supposed to communicate with the spirits of those who have the faithful departed and ancestors and stuff. It does not. It's not an abomination, because it's not a seance. It's not summoning spirits, and Shinto says you're not supposed to indulge in some of the things the ninjas got a bad reputation for, which is the types of magic and necromancy that is discouraged in scripture, because you don't know necessarily which spirits you're summoning. But the way that they are doing it, it is to bless and honor and remember and cherish those. Vietnam does that more than any communist country who resembles the religion of Japan, and so it shows why the Japanese